Hey, Dr. Drew here, and this is just a reminder that the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care or medical evaluation. This is purely for entertainment and education. We hope you learned something, but see your doctor, get proper medical care. Hey, this is Dr. Drew, and you were listening to This Life
with Bob Forrest
and Dr. Drew.
Here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, gather round the iPhone again. Here we are. We're back.
We're not only back, we have a very special guest, Christina P. Christina, welcome.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I'm such huge fans of you guys.
Oh my God.
I told you I'm a fan of yours, so
I'm
this is
freaking
good.
And in
I'm
the
freaking
green
out a little bit
room,
too.
Oh,
in the
man.
green room, we decided we're going to revitalize sex rehab and have it be
Yes.
abusers, sexual abusers, with Dr.
Yeah.
Drew.
Hey, speaking of the rehab shows, did you hear Busey on Stern?
No.
He was fantastic. He was so great.
Stem cells.
No.
That's what I heard.
All right,
No,
let me-
stem
let me-
cells.
I missed
they can
that.
replace anything.
Bob,
He was
Bob.
one of the greats.
He was still Gary. He was still Gary, okay? He was still Gary.
Okay.
Christina P has Netflix special, Mother Inferior. I recommend it in the strongest terms. Susan and I, my wife, were watching it, and I was like, we got to get her for the podcast. I need to talk to her. And do you remember what else I said? No. So
She's texting, guys.
no, I said, I'll tell you in a little bit. I'm not going to show my hand just yet.
Okay.
Follow Christina at Christina P, Christina, ChristinaPonline.com is where you can find her. Also, the podcast, Your Mom's House Podcast, and That's Deep Bro podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. She, of course, married to Tom Segura and co-host and father of a son, Ellis.
Yes.
You had 1 2-year-old, or is there more coming?
Just one for now, but I want to do more.
How many?
Should I? I want one more.
Two, it's good.
Right? Don't you guys have two?
We have triplets. I know, it's insane.
Horrible.
But they're
How'd that go?
horrible. Look at the hair color. That happened the first year. Also, this week's courtesy of Hydrolite. Our friends at Hydrolite, don't forget those guys on Facebook. We love that product.
I use it all the time now.
Yeah, I do too. And a shout out to The Last House Sober Living. We interviewed those guys recently.
Yeah, it was good.
They were excellent. We got a lot to get into. I've got a bunch of Twitter hate going, which is awesome. We got to talk about Leanne Tweeden, my friend Leanne Tweeden, and all the mishigas around her today. Also, I did a special with Elizabeth Smart where I interviewed her for a couple hours with her dad. It was up November 20th, those of you on Facebook. Right? Isn't that the date for that?
That's
thing
Monday.
Monday, I believe. That's right. And very interesting
But
talk.
you have to watch the
Yeah.
first episode and then you do the interview the second week, right?
I think what it is something like it's the night before they run the 2 parts, then they run them again Monday, and then my
okay.
thing, and then again they run them or something. But it's worth spending time with because it is a breathtaking story, and she is a delightful,
my
poised
gosh.
woman who has survived this. And I just had to know how and why and what
Yes.
that was like. It's just incredible.
And now she's talking about it, which is even better. I've
like
been
crazy.
waiting for that.
Oh, have you been waiting for this
Well,
one?
it was a not fantastic, good, but just an amazing story.
So, Christina, what I said was, first of all, I love the comedy special.
Oh, thank you so much.
Because you didn't take any crap from you were pulling the gloves off a bit. And you weren't being PC, which I found refreshing in this age when everyone's walking on eggshells. You just said screw it.
Yeah, I think there's a being offended culture that's happening, and it's happening for the sake of being offended,
Yes.
rather than we should be offended at actual things. Like everyone's upset about this sexual predator and that one. Don't forget we have one in the White House too. Like there's stuff that we're not really looking.
We're glossing over.
Yeah,
We
like
gloss over
let's
stuff.
get offended at some real stuff, not what so and so said on Twitter today. What Justin Bieber was tweeting. You know.
I am offended.
What did
just
he?
thinking about
What
it.
did he
Yeah.
tweet?
She's just making something up.
Well, because people are outraged. It's
I want to be
outrage.
outraged at Justin
Yeah.
Bieber.
Yeah, it's
if
outrage.
he does that girl wrong a second time, I will come after him.
Well, that too, and like the PC culture on college campuses. I narrated a documentary called "Can We Take a Joke" about how that dialogue has been shut down on college campuses now. You can't even
All
talk
dialogue
about,
has been shut down.
right, and that's really dangerous. So it's not just the comedians; it's colleges
Yeah.
too.
Did you go out in college, or do you go out in colleges now?
Hell no.
Yeah,
For that reason.
it's too dangerous.
Well, they won't. They tell you don't talk about sex, drugs, fucking, and this and that. I can curse, right?
Facebook,
Yeah.
Facebook gets a little
Sorry,
upset
yeah,
about it.
okay.
You can say it on the podcast, but
Yeah,
Facebook doesn't
sorry,
take it.
sorry. But what else are
Effing.
those kids doing? They're effing and they're drinking and screwing.
And who says you can't talk about it? The administration?
Yes, yeah. When they hire you, they give you guidelines. Same with the military, which is like, what else am I going to talk about? Recipes for apple brown Betty? Like these guys are out in the in the
Middle of
S.
nowhere,
Yeah,
yeah.
doing their thing.
So the other thing, I was
So-
watching your Netflix special, and I went, "Oh, wait a minute, this woman is super smart, super smart." And then she said, "I'm Hungarian." I went, "Aha!" Because every Hungarian I know is insanely bright.
A little bit
Is
of
that right?
Is there a
They're
little
either-
bit of gypsy in you too?
Don't you dare! Don't. That is a
No,
huge insult.
She's
to
the real,
Hungarians.
really for real Hungarian.
Yeah, both
And-
my parents were immigrants.
Yeah,
They
and
escaped.
they're only true photographic memories I've seen are in Hungarians. Anybody in your family have that?
No, a lot of alcoholic.
Well, there's a lot too. So there's that also. And then
Oh, that's America.
no, it's
No, no,
Hungarian.
it's the old
It's
country.
that sort of Czech Hungarian. There's a
Yes.
lot of Bavarian stuff.
Yes.
And the other thing is math, like crazy science minds, math minds,
Yes.
like crazy. And you studied at Oxford for a while.
Well, yeah, I did. It's so lame. Medieval and Renaissance studies. So it was like, I mean, it's so useless.
Well, why? What got you there?
I
Were
wasn't.
you like a Catholic?
No, I was not good at the real world. I didn't like the
Where'd
real.
you go
I
to
still
high
don't like
school?
it. All girls Catholic school in the Valley. I got kicked out of public school. I just decided to not go anymore because I was getting into fights because I was a goth girl and they were busting in kids. Excuse me, from South Central, and I was getting into fights like on the daily.
So perfect place to send the goth chick is to a Catholic school.
Yeah, it was, but I loved it.
There is
I
some
loved it.
sense in that.
I guess so. I
Yeah.
There's
guess
a lot
so.
of rosaries involved in the goth movement.
Yeah, I loved the structure because at home there was no structure, so it was like this wonderful.
If you take the white thing the nuns wear around their heads,
Yeah.
it is kind of goth. If
Yeah,
you take
no,
that
I love
away,
it.
make
Yeah.
it black.
Like Sister Bertrell's thing? What are you talking about?
Yeah,
You never went to Catholic school,
No,
Drew.
I did not.
you didn't.
I
No.
did my whole life. God bless them.
Yeah, I liked it, but I don't like the real world. I didn't like it, and I thought philosophy. Also, I came from a lot of BS in my family history, so I think it was really a way for me of figuring out the world was studying philosophy.
And so you went straight from high school to Oxford?
No, I went to a university in San Francisco, and then I did a year abroad. At
I
Oxford.
see.
So it was like a year program.
What university in San Francisco?
University of San
You-
Francisco.
yeah, you said.
Yeah, yeah.
And do you retain any of St. Thomas Aquinas or
Yes,
St. Augustine
a
or
little.
whoever? What were the parameters of philosophy? From whom to whom? From like Maimonides to
Oh, that's terrible. I don't even know that one. No, I mean, I remember St. Augustine said we're born in between urine and feces. That was his big thing. And I thought, wow, it's such an interest. And that's the premise for the Catholic Church is that, well, that's true. He's the father of that church, of that thinking that we are inherently sinful and inherently bad. And you go, well,
And
wow,
dirty.
no wonder we're
Dirty.
so screwy. Yeah.
Soiled.
Soiled. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Bob.
well, we are
Maybe you.
we are born sometimes not between, but right amongst urine and feces. Right? Typically, rather, urine and feces are right with us
That's
when we're
right.
born.
I just was fully aware of I have two young children, right? But I have an older son, right? But I was high when the older son was born, so I don't really remember all the stuff that goes on.
Sure.
Then when
That's
when
the custom.
Elvis
Right.
when Elvis was born, I was like, holy hell.
Yeah.
Right? And I always tell this story. We went to natural childbirthings there
Oh,
in
no.
Flint in La Cañada Flint Ridge every Sunday, right? They don't tell you about the heads being small,
Stretching.
Yeah.
So I looked down in the little plastic thing, and I'm supposed to cut the umbilical cord, and the head was like a Martian. I was like, shit, just, and then this thing came over me. It's gonna be okay. I'll love him anyway. You know what I mean? And the
yeah.
nurse, who was sharp, picked up like, "Oh, honey, the heads are like that," because I kept touching the head, like, "Oh my God, he's got a cone."
He's got a cone head.
They should really tell that stuff in birthing classes.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even take a class. And they told me I was going to have a C-section. I went into labor not knowing what was going to happen. And I just got high. They give you lots of
I
drugs.
say they should leave the dads the hell out of the birthing room, Bob.
Oh,
That's the bottom
Yeah,
line.
I think I might go back to the cigar thing.
You and Fred McMurray
Yeah,
are waiting,
no,
waiting in the
Ricky,
hall.
Ricky,
Right.
I always remember Ricky Arnett.
Ricky Ricardo?
Ricky
Yeah.
Jr. was born.
Well, they used to put women out.
Yeah.
It's in my act as a joke, but give me the 1950s birth. But why did they stop doing that?
Why'd they stop doing
Yeah.
that, Drew?
Because they have a spinal. They can make it so it doesn't hurt with spinal anesthesia.
I want to be totally out.
Well, you can be. They'll work it for you. Yeah, no problem.
I asked. She wouldn't do it. My doctor wouldn't do it.
Well, it certainly adds risk because you don't breathe as well and stuff like that.
Oh, that whole
yeah,
thing.
I know
Yeah.
you need to breathe.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
So did it
Oh.
affect your existential philosophy when you had a child
Yes.
to look after? It
Yes.
does, doesn't it?
I'll tell you what. I was way more spiritual before I had a kid.
Before.
I was
more
actually
practical now.
Yeah. Now I'm like, there's nothing going on. I just got to protect my young and got to make sure this guy goes to college and, doesn't get
You
someone
became like
pregnant.
some sort of female jaguar or something.
Yeah.
Some sort of,
I'm a wolf. Yeah, protecting my young, man. That's my duty.
Now, you used to be a fan, or you still, I guess, are a fan of Celebrity Rehab and stuff Bob and I did. So you had questions for us, you said.
Let's talk about it
Yeah.
all day.
Yeah.
Well, I asked you about specific characters. I mean,
They're
people.
humans.
Human patients of ours, you mean, we were deeply concerned about for many years?
Yeah. Well, I like
Some
the,
of which have passed.
Yes.
I know. I miss Jeff Conway.
Oh, you have no idea.
He was the greatest.
You have
He
no
was
idea.
one of our favorite people on the show.
He's a Valley guy. He was a
I
Valley guy.
know. And he suffered so much on that on your guys' show.
Here's I'll tell you a little wrinkle that
Yeah.
happened off camera because we struggled with him for a long. We kept struggling with poor Jeff. And
His abuse in
Oh,
childhood
was ritualistic.
is 10 on a 10 scale.
Because you guys didn't. I wanted you to get deeper on.
Oh,
the
we
show.
got into it. They just don't
the-
show it to
That's
you.
what I'm saying. I
I
wanted.
wanted
to
it
see.
too. He was in his initial abuse is he was sort of
He was in
kidnapped.
child porn.
Yeah, he was kidnapped by a Catholic magazine salesman at the door who took him away for a photograph shoot, and he ended up in child porn. And then he became this object of horrific physical abuse by the neighbor kids. They'd put him in a lay and hit him with rocks and lay him on the railroad tracks. And it was like Penelope pit stop. I mean, it's like ridiculous.
That's
like
not
ritual.
his mom was not a jaguar.
Right. I'm protecting mine.
Yeah.
Eyes on.
Don't let that happen.
No, are you kidding me? No way. I'm putting him in karate first thing.
But Jeff was
He was the OG. Yeah, he was really. He seemed very troubled. And so why wouldn't they let you get deeper on?
We
the
did. Whatever we did, we
I
did
mean,
it.
showing it rather
I have
than
no idea.
network.
I have
Yeah.
no idea. We didn't get involved in the editing or anything. We just did our work and we treated it the way we treat people, and they cut it up the way they cut it up.
Yeah, because I wanted to see more. I wish the show was like 2
There
hours.
was too much sailing on it. Let's go to the beach.
Yeah, they want to do
Let's go
activities.
to the-
and things
Oh,
like,
isn't
yeah.
that the worst?
The
on
worst.
Like I could just sit here and
Why
listen to
do
you
they do
guys
that?
talk. That's
Yeah.
what I want is get into the
Yeah,
trauma.
I always said what we should have done if we didn't have this option really back in the day, but if we could just shown the groups real time online.
That's what I want.
The groups were amazing.
I'll
We had
give you a
some amazing
behind the
groups.
scenes you'll like, right? So you know how shows are and they have the next day's shooting schedule?
Yes.
Drew would look at it and it would say like snowboarding and he'd be like, oh my fucking God.
I'd be like,
Why?
no.
His head would explode.
And it got to the point where I said, we're not doing this anymore
Yeah.
unless nobody gets near the patients and nobody makes eye contact with me. Nobody in the pregnancy team can make eye contact or talk to me. And they certainly can't talk to the patients. They can ask me 4 questions.
Yeah.
Doctor, how's the patient doing? What's this going to cost? What's the aftercare plan? And what's the family therapy going to be? That's it.
Yeah.
One more question. I'm walking off this set. I
Yeah.
swear to Christ. Because it became
it was
waterboarding and
crazy.
stuff. It was like-
Over the years, they just had to do more and more crazy.
But they didn't. They
did
didn't.
not, that's
The
right.
show was inherently interesting because we
know.
wanted them to succeed. So let's talk about my favorite night is always the first night.
Okay, so hold on. If we do that,
Of
I'll
which
tell you a
season?
insight
Of
about
which
Bob.
season?
Any.
Tell you an insight. That was a hard day for me. Just admitting. Normally in treatment, you admit like 2 or 3 people at a time. It's a rolling admissions. There's people that have been there for a while and help you enroll patients. Taking 8 or 10 people and enrolling them all at once on one day is brutal.
Why is that? Why
do they do that? 'Cause it's-
No. Why is it? What's so brutal about it? It's just because the
I have
involvement-
to get to know them. It takes hours to assess each one of them. I have to get to know them.
Just
I have to
bed
make-
placement, for instance,
Well, no,
right?
no.
That I didn't want. You got to know who you're putting people in with, and this way, it's just en masse. Like you
Right.
probably liked the season with what's Jason Davis and Janice Dickinson,
Yeah,
right?
love
You can
Janice.
see there was war beginning on hour 2.
Yes. Well, Janice is
right?
her personality is very big too. She's
Well, but he's
very-
still admitting people,
I
and
see,
the
I have to- I
unit's
have
not
to-
up and running yet, and they're going to war.
I have
Yeah.
to evaluate them for like an hour or 2 and figure out what's going on, make an assessment, make a
Yeah.
plan, start doing their detoxes and stuff, and then see them through into the night through the withdrawal. And it's not easy. But let me tell you a quick thing about Bob and Jeff Conway. So this is something you didn't see on TV. So we were struggling with him. We struggled with him forever. And all of a sudden Bob goes, "Yeah, I remember back at Jerry's Deli when Jeff used to 12-step me." I'm like, "What are you talking
used to
about?"
try to get
I go,
me
"What are you
sober."
talking about, Jeff 12-stepping?" I go, "What? You had Jeff was sober in the program trying to get you sober
Yeah.
one day? Why did you tell me that when we first met him, which had been years before?"
He was, it was years before. We had
But
treated
you're
him a
upset
couple of-
because that would have meant that he had a rapport, and it would
It
have
just
been,
was such a piece of that relationship that I didn't know
I
about
see.
it, and
Yeah.
it's big, and I could have used that to go, Jeff, dude,
And see
remember what that was
Yeah.
like? You know,
So
look
I
at
was-
him now.
I
that
was
kind of thing.
friends
Right.
with him, and what happened was he never really took to the 12 steps. Immediately after about 2 years sobriety, he started getting into the Bible a lot, and he would bring his Bible to 12-step meetings, and that's going to alienate you from
From
90%
some,
of the
yeah.
crowd,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But he, I don't know, he just was so nice to me and kept encouraging me. He was so tolerant of my relapsing, unlike a lot
I
of
mean,
the people
just
at the
think
time.
about now how that relationship had shifted, and I didn't know anything about that background. That was like stunning to me. So anyway, what was your other question?
Well,
what about
no,
day one?
I love day one because it was like, how are these people going to sneak in their drugs of choice?
Oh, always,
And
always,
It was
always.
the funnest to find like how you guys would find
Yeah,
the
yeah.
contraband and
Oh,
all
yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff. So what's the most creative thing you've ever seen?
Ever seen?
Oh, it's
Oh, come on now.
So-
how about
sneaking it
do we
in.
have to get graphic? I know.
Please, this is what I want.
How about a syringe
Uh-huh.
put inside a condom, greased and put up inside an anus? Can we say that on
Yeah,
Facebook
yeah,
Live?
rectum.
How about that?
That's a good one.
Why would you do that? This is
Listen,
a
I thought-
hospital. This is a hospital. You could find one of those anywhere.
Oh, it was empty. It was an empty
To
syringe.
me, the more amazing thing, they're addicts. They're out of their mind. They're doing whatever, and they're afraid of detoxing. I get what addicts do. And Sizemore, by the way, was pretty good too.
He was
We had
fantastic.
balloons all over the place. We kept finding them for days.
And he kept saying he's not on heroin.
yeah, I know. We kept finding heroin in his trash can.
He's on meth. And he's like, and he's asleep for 62 hours.
Right.
Well, that was the meth, to be fair. But and I'm worrying about Tom again.
So talented too.
Oh, and what the
Well,
greatest
too
guy
talented.
ever.
I
Greatest
say
guy
Tom
ever.
Sizemore is too talented.
Yes.
Because when you're trying to deal with him, he's acting. He
Right.
can't
Sometimes,
separate. The acting
sometimes.
doesn't stop. No, pretty much he doesn't know that there's a real him anymore.
Well,
Wow.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because it was hard to watch him in films after having seen him on Celebrity Rehab. Because you're like, well, that guy's on. No, man. Like I would have
intense.
no idea.
He's intense. But back to the contraband and stuff. The stuff that always astonished me was the family who was demanding and worried and look at what they're going through and we got to get them through this would show up with the syringes up their butts or something too. They would be as bad. They'd be worse than the addicts sometimes.
Well, because isn't that the whole codependent
Yeah.
cycle?
But the
that-
degree of it is so when you really see it and you're talking to somebody and you think they're in a certain place and then you see how they behave, you can't believe it sometimes. It's amazing. Yeah.
How do you deal with the families that because they have to get in treatment too?
Yes, they do.
But do they? I
Well,
mean,
we used to
that's-
insist on it.
Yeah.
And
You gotta
whether they
work.
participate is a whole other matter. I mean, there's in treatment and then there's in treatment, right?
Yes.
And that was always hard with family. And I had many unpleasant encounters with family screaming at me that it's not their problem.
Yeah.
That why you're talking to me, I'm not the sick one.
Yeah. Yeah. That's gotta. Do you ever get
Here's a
frustrated?
new thing. Here's
Ever
a new
get
thing.
frustrated.
So I deal with it now daily. It's gotten way worse, right? You can imagine we're talking about in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Now, 2017 is crazy. The moms and dads and the best friends and they're advocates for their children. They're the ones that got the principal fired when the kid acted out, right?
Right,
And you
right.
can imagine what parents are like nowadays. And it's just you get yourself into these confrontations with them. So I came up with this funny way of doing it. When is an adult an adult? Tell me at what age now? Because when I was growing up, it was 18.
Right.
So
It's
your son is
28.
28.
It's 27.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
27.
Yeah, your brain isn't
27 or
even-
28. So parents are going to advocate for their 27 and 28-year-olds just like they did when they were in first grade and second grade and third grade.
Right.
Right? It's madness.
Right. But they can't. You can't. The 18
No, they
is
can-
the age.
they
Oh,
can-
Miss Jaguar, wait to see what happens here. We'll see how that goes.
I know.
I don't know. I'm Catholic, and anytime my kids get in trouble, I'm assuming yeah, for sure it was them, for sure. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a better.
But
That's
parents
Yes.
nowadays, he would never do that.
I'm
like,
bracing myself for the mom culture because I see it like I do these
I would
mommy and me classes.
readopt your goth stuff again and get
Oh,
the whole
yeah.
goth deal on.
Well, I was in a mommy and me class, and a woman was breastfeeding her 3-year-old.
Mm.
I'm sorry, 152-week-old, whatever. And I was like, "Are you really? Is this the norm now? Like, we're just gonna?" Because I know I can't coddle him forever. But then I get afraid because I had so much tough love, the Eastern Bloc stuff. stuff. I don't want to do that.
You want to be
either.
sure that you don't compensate. Yeah. Whenever
Yes.
you're reacting to what your parents did, whether it's the same or the opposite, it's not good for the kids.
Right.
Pray
Got
to
it.
pray.
why I'm
To,
in
this is what I had
Good.
to do.
Every
Good.
week.
Good.
Or you can pray since you're goth.
Yeah.
Pray to
God,
see the
Catholic.
wisdom in your parents' way of doing things.
Pray to see
because
the
I
wisdom.
don't know.
because
I don't
no,
know about that.
That's what I did. And the fact is, my dad loved me. He never told me he loved me.
Yeah.
Not once. It never came out of his mouth. But he expressed it in the ways that he could express love. Right? If
that's
we're going to
not-
still be angry at our parents
Oh,
and go
right.
the other way,
Right.
That's
right.
just
You
called
can't-
forgiveness.
Yeah,
you can't
forgiveness.
have
That's just
wholeness.
forgiveness. Yeah.
Well, but that's why we overparent.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
Believe me, I know.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's a generation of like Gen Xers who grew up with no parents. They're overcompensating
Yes.
because
It's
of,
really
of all the stuff.
it's
that
really
we
the
didn't get.
baby boomers that didn't get. They had the
Yeah.
really super didn't get.
Boomers got it the worst. 'cause
Yeah.
The generation that raised the boomers was very stoic.
Yes.
No
That's the great
feelings.
generation.
The greatest
That was the greatest
generation.
generation. They weren't the most loving.
No,
Yeah.
no.
They weren't the most nurturing.
No, they were serial killers. That's what
Well-
I say in my act, that they were raised like serial killers. Don't cry, suck it up, come on, and of course.
You know what? I don't even think my dad was told don't cry. There was no one to cry to.
Ooh,
You know,
that's
when you have
interesting.
8 brothers and 2 sisters in a 3-bedroom shack in the
Yikes.
freezing cold of Minnesota, I don't think there's
There
anybody
was-
to cry to.
Yeah, there was a lot of just focus on survival for that
There really
generation.
was.
And therefore,
Yes.
what are you going to do for the group that has everything, except shame them for having everything and not having to struggle to survive?
So watch his
got a
approach.
lot of that.
Watch, but
it's
look at your
true,
parents.
man.
Probably similar. My dad was, I'm going to be successful in life and give my children every opportunity that was not given to me.
Yeah.
But he forgot the love and nurture.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So it's fell
Christina
a
was
little
very-
short.
Chris-
So 2 of his kids are drug addicts. 2 out of 4.
Christina was very interested in the abuse that I suffered. Go ahead. You had a
I
question?
want to
Yeah,
hear it
yeah.
all because I feel like I never got to hear. So tell me.
But you
so-
get it that trauma plus exposure, use in the face of adverse consequences creates addiction.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
I learned that by watching Celebrity Rehab.
There you
And it
go.
was around the same time I got my ass into therapy.
Good.
I didn't have a problem with addiction, but a lot of trauma in my past or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so great. That's why I think it's such a great service what you guys do.
Well, thank you.
But let's talk about your trauma.
Go ahead.
Drew. Go into it.
Please.
Okay. Parents.
Yeah.
What's their background? Let's go.
My
love
dad
it.
was a Depression era, first generation, lived in Chicago. They lost everything in the Depression. Was
Russian Jew.
extremely,
Oh,
you know,
man.
extremely traumatized. They were traumatized by the pogroms or whatever they were
Yeah,
running away
yeah.
from. They could never tell us. It was too bad. They weren't sure. Actually, all we could get was that they didn't know who the bad guys were. They just know people kept running over their town.
Bolsheviks.
Yeah, it was the Bolsheviks, or it was my grandma called them the Banditos because they were just these bandits would come through and they'd wreck everything, and we don't know who that was really. It was just one.
Wreck
group
is a
after another.
nice word for what they did, Drew. They raped and pillaged.
Okay, so they came here, which, by the way,
Okay, Bob. We got it. I love it.
so they came here, but
He always has to go darker on it, Bob. It's so great.
they had to have sponsors. They had to pay to get here. They had to prove how they were going to make a living. I mean, this
Yep.
business about open borders, like, wait a minute, so we've never been that way.
They were poor.
They were poor. And they came and they set up a delicatessen. They lost everything, and my grandfather ended up being a grocer. But because of all that trauma, my dad, who was a family practitioner and was a good doctor, traumatized the shit out of me financially. Like, if I needed a pair of shoes, like, oh yeah, well, first the story. We didn't have shoes. We would walk through the snow in Chicago. You don't understand.
Yeah.
And get the shoes. But then next week, come wait for me at the poorhouse. I'll be in the poorhouse. It's fine. It won't kill me. I'll be in the poorhouse. And you'll be all right. You walk by with your new shoes and you say hi to me. And I was 2. I had this whole poorhouse in my head my whole life. So that was his contribution.
So, but that lends itself to the poverty consciousness
yeah.
growing up, right? So
Oh.
I'm sure once you got
Dip-
some success.
No, it's all like,
Right.
and so the disaster around the corner. I still feel like
yeah, me
tomorrow.
too.
Oh, that's the Hungarian
me
thing.
too. Yeah, let's get into it, man. When's that other shoe gonna drop? Everything's too good right now.
It's the catastrophe's
away.
coming.
Yeah,
Catastrophe's
put it away.
coming.
Hide it under the bed.
Bury the coins in the backyard.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man.
We're still
Totally.
digging them up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. It's true.
Yeah, so that's Dad.
Yeah, that's Dad. And my mom was an opera singer who ended
Wow.
up fronting like bands and things, and ended up
hot.
being a singer, like a
Oh, I don't know
film,
if I can say that, right?
being a film noir actress. She was in like
Get
all the film
out.
noir things and stuff. And so my whole life I had this feeling that was I adopted or what did I do wrong? This kind of weird feeling.
Yes.
Okay, so
You have that.
Me
you
too.
have
okay,
that.
well, wait, maybe I'm
Like
just
Harry Potter.
wait. Well, here's the
Take
story.
me to Hogwarts.
So I'm on Loveline about 10 years ago one night, maybe 15 years ago. A friend of mine's in there, and he's a film noir freak. So he wanted to look up my mom on the internet. She goes, "Oh, here's your mom on the internet." And he starts reading this thing, and he goes, "Oh, Eileen Satin, she came, there she is.
Oh, wow.
She's the fifth wife of silent film star Harlan something." I'm like, what? Turned out at 18, some 56-year-old silent film star picked her up and took her out here, married to him for 10 years, had a stepson.
That's why he's so pretty.
Knew nothing about
And it's in
any of this.
Wikipedia.
It's in her Wikipedia. It's in her Wikipedia. Knew nothing about any of it. I thought,
That
I
is
was like 45.
I
And
was
you were 45 when you found that out?
45, 50 in that range, somewhere there.
live on the radio.
And my sister flipped out. And I went, "Look, she's made it till she's 80 with this secret. Let's let her.
Yeah, what's the
what are we
point?
going to accomplish?"
She took it to her
But
grave.
but I called her stepson. Corolla and I were in Santa Barbara doing an appearance, and this woman came up to me and said, "I need to do an amends to you." I go, "About what?" I go, my father." And I was like, "Who's your father?" Well, and she told the whole story. She's the stepson of this guy, this maniac who was picking up 18-year-olds at the age of 60 and taking them to California. And I called him. He's a retired dentist in Stockton. This guy. And she had a stepson for years. And
Gorgeous.
then one day, talking about Don Draper, man, she just left. Boom, gone. And he's so funny. The guy was very nice.
Do you stay in touch?
Dentist. I've emailed him once in a while. I kept trying to get my sister to call him because I think it was interesting. But he goes, yeah. He goes, they lived over in the over by the tar pits, kind of that area, and they'd have a party every Sunday night. Now, my mother always talked about the people that was around her, Carolyn Jones and Ann Bancroft. She knew everybody, blah blah blah. This guy goes, well, every Sunday night, these people would come over. And he described the guy, he's some character actor in film, apparently well. And he goes, the woman, he goes, you may know her. Did you ever watch the Beverly Hillbillies? Well, Granny in the Beverly Hillbillies. I was like, what? I watched that all the way through my childhood. She
And
never
your
once
mom
said
never
that
met-
one. I knew her pretty well.
That's an old friend of mine.
Yeah,
But all the other ones I heard all about.
Who cares
ones
about
I didn't
those?
care. Yeah, exactly.
That's in the old days. You could just move from Wilshire District to Pasadena, and it was like a complete other life you could
Right.
create.
You vanished. Yeah, you vanished. So we don't even
right.
know to this day whether my dad even knew about it. Anyway, it's true.
But
It's
he's
true.
gone. Your
He's
dad
gone. They're
is-
both
yeah.
gone. But
Yeah.
she was tremendously emotionally abusive at times. Terrifically
Isn't that,
so.
you know what kills me is that the best people have these horrific stories. And then, you guys.
You can either go either way with the bad stories.
yeah.
You can go bad or you can go extra good. And going extra good, you suffer, and so you got to have therapy for that. So,
Yeah.
right? Because
I mean-
codependency is you go into codependency. You start worrying about
Yes.
everybody else, keep them all together, before you have
I mean,
any
you
of your own
see it,
feelings.
and you're in comedy. You see it in Belushi. You see it in
Oh.
this wanting to be liked and wanting to make everybody
course.
happy all the time, right?
And-
Robin Williams.
Yeah.
It's tragic, especially in comedy.
And
right?
we work in bars. You work in
Yeah.
a bar at the worst time. Like nighttime, nothing good happens. And you're off the stage and you're all jacked up on adrenaline. Everybody loves you. And hey, time to go back to your hotel room and just be quiet now.
And you're there all weekend. See, I didn't
Yeah.
know until the last couple of years that you work Thursday night, so you get in
No,
Wednesday.
boo boo. You sometimes
Thursday,
yeah,
Friday,
Wednesday
Saturday,
night.
Sunday. So you're by yourself usually.
Yes.
Right? From Wednesday to Sunday, doing 7 shows in 4 days.
Yep.
You got to drink.
Well,
you would have to have cocktails.
First of all, I don't do that schedule anymore. Once I had a kid, I was like, F yourself. Like, I'm going out for 48 hours maximum, this many shows, and I'm home. But there was a point where I was in a hotel room drinking wine during the day and crocheting and crying.
Crochet.
And I was like, I got to turn this around because I don't day drink. And I was like, this is not me.
No, I was just about the crocheting.
Yeah.
Forget the drinking.
Yeah, the crocheting is the weird thing.
Really neat hobby.
The drinking is the normal thing.
I don't know what happened with me in crocheting.
Where did you learn crocheting? Hungarian.
No, I just decided I needed a hobby. I was reading about hobbies, and I thought, well, that's what balanced people do. They acquire hobbies.
You
and
should have gone back to St. Thomas Aquinas.
I-
forget hobbies.
It's so stupid. But I don't do those weeks. But I eventually brought a dog on the road with me because I was so lonely and it was so horrible. Yeah, that's why a lot of comics fall into drugs and alcohol and partying.
When did you decide to be a comedian?
23. I'm 41 now.
So early, this is for me.
this is for me. But I knew I couldn't function in the real world. I just knew it. Like when I graduated, I had 22 jobs in 4 years that I either got fired from or quit. I
But
tried
if you would
everything.
have followed the philosophy thing, teaching philosophy at a college isn't
Oh,
a
I
job.
tried that. I went to
It didn't
grad
work.
school.
You couldn't do it.
What'd you go to grad school in?
philosophy.
What kind of philosophy?
Oh, it's just general. It was like for the
I
masters.
have a great podcast for you. It's called Partially Examined Life.
I know those guys, Mark Lindenmeyer.
Okay, all
Yes,
right. I don't
hello.
too. I have them on my podcast.
Yeah.
But
Who's
you
your
got to go
favorite
on it. You got to go on
philosopher?
the pod.
I know, but after reading and
It's okay.
refresh
They'll
my-
let you pick the stuff. I did it, and it was.
You did? What did
yes.
you do?
I did a couple of sort of papers on. There were psychological papers, but they sort of bordered on philosophical principles. The guy Peter Fonagy is a guy that has sort of operationalized the encounter we have that creates attachment, and he has a very philosophical bent about agency and how that works. And I heard somewhere he studied philosophy. It just feels like a philosophy paper the way he writes his psychological papers. So you can pick whatever you want.
Interesting.
They have never done St. Thomas Aquinas. They've never done him.
It's so boring.
I don't
won't-
care.
she
I
won't-
already learned something just
Haven't
talking
you
to
realized
you. Who-
she won't
so
say who
boring.
she
I'm
likes.
going-
I'll tell ya.
Okay, who?
I like the existentialists.
I knew
believe
you
in
did.
Which
Sartre,
one?
Sartre, but it's Jean Paul
He
Sartre.
hates him. He
Camus.
hates him.
You know
Camus.
Let me turn you on to somebody else. If you like Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir.
Hello, I
Okay.
love her.
I met her. I met her.
You did
Oh, yes, I
not.
did.
When,
I
in
met her.
1930?
No, she was out here pitching Blood of Others for a TV show in the 80s.
Wait, Simone
Simone de
de
Beauvoir is
Beauvoir?
like
Yeah.
would have been 100 then.
No. Yeah, no.
No.
Sartre's girlfriend,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
Yes.
she was out here pitching a TV show. I had
Oh,
lunch
it's
with
bizarre.
her. I had lunch with her at that weird
What?
round restaurant, the
Bob.
Sunset Strip. I swear to God.
Were you
I believe you.
using
I believe
back
you.
then?
He was,
That's
but I
not-
still believe him. But he's not prone to hyperbole. But
I'm like Zelig. I've been here forever, right? Ivan Moffat. I'll tell you. You
It's
want to hear
true.
old Hollywood stories? Ivan Moffat and John Frankenheimer. Are they both dead? I'm thinking.
I don't
know.
know who these people
Okay, so I worked for their writer, right? His name is John Arnoldy. He's still alive. I know that. So they were trying to take this pitch about the Blood of Others being a TV show. Oh
my
but,
God.
So one day,
What a bummer
I'm this
pitch.
little
Like, what?
21-year-old guy, like getting meth and coke for the writer. That was my job. Anyways,
God,
that's how I
Bob.
met Kathy Evelyn Smith too, during the
You need
Belushi
to-
trial.
So you need to write the big memoir.
So,
Yeah.
so here's the deal. So they say we're going to lunch, and I'm finally going to meet these great icons of Hollywood, right? And they go to this restaurant on Wilshire Boulevard called The Ball. Have you ever heard of
No.
it?
No.
It's a high class, like Musso and Frank's restaurant,
Yeah.
and with all young female waitresses that are completely naked. And it's
What?
right on Wilshire Boulevard.
doesn't exist.
I swear to
Not
God,
anymore.
this is in
Not anymore.
1980s.
Oh yeah, I did. That we had the Pussycat Theater in the 1980s. They used to show pornography in movie theaters.
I know. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Have you got to watch The Deuce? Where it's
I heard you talking about that.
it is how that all came to be.
Pee Wee Herman would have
into
never
it.
gotten in trouble if he was born a couple decades later.
I agree. Now that's such a minor transgression, and that's the place you should be doing what he
But
was
there
doing.
wouldn't have
Like,
been those places. He just would have been at home.
That's
Yeah,
true.
very sad.
It's sad.
Paul's you know Paul?
I don't.
One of the most gracious, lovely humans
I
you ever
bet.
meet. Yeah, but
Bad
so,
luck.
So
so
existentialism, how does
so
that
what about,
translate
so where,
to
where does,
parenting?
hang on a sec. Where does Heidegger fit into your whole thing?
Oh, I like Heidegger a lot.
Yeah.
What do you
Very
teach your
hard to
children
Have
read.
you
about
watched Bert Dreyfus's series of? Okay, I'll get you. turned on to
No,
that.
but
Oh,
I like being in time. I like his idea of the meaning of being. The meaning of being is located in care, meaning what we lend our attention to, what we lend our care to. Here's what I like about existentialism: the fact that you can choose, the fact that you can choose a different course, you can create.
But Sartre took that to a weird.
Yes, I'm not saying it's all perfect,
Yeah.
but I think what I was looking for as a philosophy student was the self-help movement. Do you understand? I was looking
Yes,
for a
I
way
do.
to live.
And I
was
think
looking at the Greeks.
existentialist is a great way to look at that. That
Yeah.
and Heraclitus. Go back a little bit too.
The Greeks, they
Yeah.
had it right too. I think
Yeah.
the Greeks had a good way, and
Yep.
then we screwed it up somewhere. What's his name? Descartes ruined philosophy. The
Yes, he
whole,
did.
Are we even here? Like,
Yeah.
dude, come on, don't
Yeah.
stop screwing it up.
And
everyone.
then his cogito was I think therefore I am. It should have
Yes.
been I think therefore evolution creates matter that can think. That was
Right.
what it should have been, as
Right.
opposed to I am.
Yeah.
So all right, let's switch. We are tight on
We are
time, right? Or is that
everywhere
true?
today.
We're good now.
Can we go more than 8 o'clock?
Okay.
This is good.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is good.
Oh,
All right.
usually in my jammies
Okay,
by
so
now.
so I have an assignment for you. I'm going to get
'Kay.
you hooked up with Wes to do the show,
'Kay.
which they love. They love doing people that have public lives and stuff. They love
Yes,
it.
yes.
And Mark, and then we're going to get you turned on to this Bert Dreyfuss series.
Okay.
On Heidegger. Okay, don't let me forget.
Okay.
Now, what I want to get into with
Running
you guys.
Monsters.
What?
She asked what my book was called.
Oh
I have a book. I have a movie. I have a website.
Have you seen his movie?
What?
I'm
His documentary about
important.
Bob?
I did not.
It's called Bob and the Monster, about his rock life.
I
And
got to see that.
It's very
It's fun.
good.
Facebook wants
I
more
love it.
another book.
Another book about
They
this.
want a memoir.
Yeah.
Simone de Beauvoir is in the middle
I
of it.
didn't.
It's like,
How many lives have
I'm
you had?
lazy. I just talked the book. They mostly wanted rock and roll stories and Viper Room stories, so I just told
That's
those
fine.
stories and they wrote it. It's a book, but I really should sit down and disciplinedly write a book. I will
I'm
do
just
that
thinking, or we gotta
before
do
I die.
or we got to do a docuseries.
Oh, it'd be fun.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Screw that opiate stuff. Let's do something positive.
Yeah, no, I was going after Big Pharma. I was. Do you know they're killing Americans?
I've heard you discuss this. Yes.
We don't discuss. We fight.
I've heard your
He thinks
theories.
it's doctors. How weird is that?
Yeah.
I'm saying it's Big Pharma. You say it's doctors.
You're taking the agency away from doctors by landing it squarely at Big Pharma's lap.
At least I'm not my old commie self blaming the government.
I seem to have adopted that these days. So yeah, I know it's weird.
Who are you? Where do you put all your frustration with our culture towards? Towards your
Stand
stand
up.
up and trying to enlighten people,
Trying.
right?
Trying
Who
to.
are your heroes
I'm
in
afraid now, though.
comedy?
Honestly,
Yeah,
I'm
do you
really
get pushback?
The anti-vaxxer community is not very happy with me right now.
That was
Oh,
so
kid-
good. I felt so liberated.
Well,
by
let me support you a little bit.
Go
A
ahead.
3-year-old child died in Orange County this week who was
Okay.
not vaccinated from the flu. The first
yeah,
flu
they need
death.
to see. The other parents need to see that happen.
Yes.
It's still behind the wall somewhere.
See, I
until
don't
they
look
see
at
it.
social
Yes.
media, so I don't care. I just say the truth, and I'm sure there's a lot of people mad at me right now. But the fact that people don't vaccinate their children because a girl who didn't even graduate high school read
Yes.
something online from a lying non-doctor who then confessed he was lying, and it still exists, is
Yes.
madness.
Well, and I think the problem too is that everyone has a platform now. In 160 characters or less, you can put out whatever nonsense you think is truth, and then it gets picked up and retweeted, and now all of a sudden it's a crusade.
That and
And-
expertise. No one understands what that is anymore.
What's an education?
Yeah,
What's a degree?
Right, it means nothing. Science is just another way of looking at things. It's-
Alternative facts.
Yeah, it's really just very discouraging.
Yeah.
That's what I was telling our kids. I said, just be an expert in something, because I want you to
Yes.
understand what that feels like to be an expert, so you know when you talk to an expert what he or she has been through to get that expertise, so you can respect it and take it accordingly.
Yeah, and education. I think there's
Yeah.
this mythology out there that anybody can drop out of high school and become an entrepreneur millionaire building an app. And it's like, okay, that's a small percentage of the human
That's
race.
17
By the way,
people.
it's
Right.
17. did
Still
it.
not educated though.
Correct,
It's still
and-
not.
Yeah, and I'm a huge advocate of formal education, book
Okay.
learning.
So
Just
we've
read
learned
the books.
Christina
Don't
P is
bang
a
it.
snob. She's an
Yeah,
educational
and
snob.
bang.
She's
Total
an
snob.
elitist snob. We've learned
Yes.
that
But
now.
you don't like college campuses. How do you reckon that?
They won't let me on. They won't.
All right, so who are your heroes of comedy?
Okay.
My hero of
Go
all
ahead.
time
Go.
life is Lenny Bruce.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
And I see things that he said in 1963 as being true still to this day, even more so. We have not progressed as a
One thing I will
society.
say,
We have not
Bob,
progressed. We have
one thing
regressed.
well, I'll give you. I rarely criticize you, but I'm going to criticize you right now. Bob sent me some Bob Dylan lyrics yesterday.
There.
And I saw what you were talking about, but you were reading a lot into it. You were reading into it. Maybe the Lenny Bruce stuff, you're reading into some of the things
Well,
he's
just
saying.
the N word. You can't even say it anymore. It gives it so much power. Then it can be possessed by other people. If you say it, you're condemned. It's a strange thing.
I know it, and all you want to do is say it. You know what I mean, Bob? Can't we just all? No.
And then you hear people say it in like an academic like, well, Tom Sawyer, for instance.
Yes, I know it's context. It is
Right?
contextual.
Oh yeah.
Right.
But he
And-
said
and we're
this,
Jim.
Yeah.
this giving power to words.
Correct.
And by suppressing people like what's going on now to thought, even
Yes, that
things I
was-
disagree with.
was
I don't want to
Lenny's thing.
suppress it. I want their stupid asses to say it over and over again so everybody can say, that dude's an idiot.
And Christine, I know we asked you who your favorite comedian is, but we're going to tell you ours. so mine is Pryor. Pryor, I think, is absolutely just a poet more than a comedian. I like the stuff,
Hands down,
like
yes.
that philosopher, poet, comedian, all in one.
Speak of the N-word.
Genius.
Yeah, genius.
Yeah, speak. You
Yeah.
said it, Bob, not me. You get the tweets,
What are
not me.
What
bro.
are your people?
Okay, so I love Bill Hicks. I think Bill Hicks was one of the greats. Bright, died at 34, which was preposterous and crazy. I love Roseanne Barr, Janine Garofalo, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy.
I have a
in his
Roseanne
heyday.
story for you.
Oh, I love Roseanne.
I like Roseanne too. She severe trauma stuff, right? And I was. You've done talk show stuff, right? You know how they groom you for the talk show. First, you do the prep, you do the pre-interview, and then that producer meets you, and you're in the makeup chair, and they're like, "What are you going to say with this? And what are you going to say then? What are you going to say then?" I'm like,
So natural, just
yeah,
so
and I'm like,
fluid.
I'm just going to say whatever. Don't relax. And she goes, "Oh, Roseanne, I can't wait to meet you." I was talking then about empowering women and things that I think are important. And this is now 15 years ago. What?
I'm hearing. Go ahead.
Okay. And 15 years ago, this is professional, right? Broadcasting.
Yeah.
And I'm in the makeup chair, and this woman's like, "This woman cannot wait to. This woman, Roseanne's all about empowering women. She loves your message about that. She can't wait to." So I go, "Good, all right, we'll have a nice conversation about it." So I walk out in the hall with this producer, and the segment producer, and there's Roseanne. We meet each other in the hall, and I go, "Hey, nice to meet you. I understand you want to talk about this." I forget what I was saying specifically, and she goes, women, F all women. They should be destroyed and killed. F all women." And I was like, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is my producer. Would you like okay?" And the producer's sitting there like, "Oh, that's Roseanne." So now fast forward, we had a good show. It was Kroll and I. She's actually a really good talk show host, Roseanne, because you never knew where she was going. And at the end, we're up the stage and, doing the Johnny Carson thing where you talk amongst yourself while the credits are rolling. And she came back to me. This is like 2 hours later. And she goes, "Hey, you know what I said to you in the hall?" She goes, "Let me tell you what that was talking about." She goes, "My mom knew I was being sexually abused, and she didn't do anything about it. And I don't think we should let women off the hook when they do things like that. So I was thinking about that at the time. I just want you to know." And I go, "Oh, okay." Could have clued me in, but it was funnier this way.
Yeah.
but she had a purpose, and she stayed with her, and she explained it to me later. And I was always grateful that she explained it, and it was actually an important point.
Yes.
That I was letting. I forget what we were talking about, but somehow in that I was overlooking some things that women need to be held accountable for.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, I think it's very complicated in comedy and with women. And Phyllis Diller, I think, was the first to point it out. When a woman holds a microphone, this is what I like about Roseanne. When she wields power, you control a room. You're holding the phallus in your hand, and you're telling everyone to suck it, and you listen to me.
What's wrong with that?
Right. Which you, you think would be, it's coming into not being so taboo. I think the millennials are cooler with us.
Our daughter did a thesis on this, on Joan
Really?
Rivers. Yeah, and she said,
Joan.
she pointed out to me that, my daughter pointed out that Joan Rivers was the first attractive young female to stand up with a microphone that wasn't singing in front of a band.
Wow.
She said before that, when women were comedians, they had to have a character. They had to be a clown, right? They had to be Mom's Mabley. Phyllis Diller, Mom's Mabley. They had to have a character. They couldn't just be themselves trying to be funny. And then the fact that she made fun of herself was even more stunning.
The self-deprecation was key. And Phyllis Diller had a huge rack, by the way. She was a D size.
And she never talked about it. She never showed anybody.
No, and in fact, she had dresses made to conceal those honkers.
Interesting.
The muumuus. And she had boots made that cut her leg at the ugliest point of her leg, is what she would say.
And she'd do the crazy hair and stuff.
Crazy hair, which started from being on the road. She couldn't afford to have her hair professionally bleached. So she would do it in the sink, and she fried her own hair. That's how the story goes. Then she wore wigs later.
I'm learning some words tonight. I've got to write this down. Honkers. Got it.
Flap wagons.
I met her when I was 11.
No kidding. Where?
She was at something that my dad, the Ford, she was a rep for, or she was the
representative.
Hired
spokesperson or
celebrity
something.
for
she was
Ford.
entertaining the group there at the Ford Aerospace.
Yeah, or something.
Interesting.
I can't remember. I was only 11. I can't remember. What
So let's
but
continue.
she was wild in person.
Continue to talk about the stuff that's bothering us today. My friend Leanne Tweeden at KBC Radio. She's in the morning show. I'm in the show that follows. Known Leanne for 20 years. She's a substantial person, and she came forward today with this report that Senator Al Franken had kissed
He's
her.
going
He
down.
forced her into stuck his tongue down her throat, is what she said, and then took a picture pretending to massage her boobs, and then it really disturbed her and made her unhappy, and she did not think it was gonna be that big a deal. She thought it was gonna be like, well, there's more. We got to empower women. We got to keep this conversation going. But it's turned into this international event. She did. Jake Tapper interviewed her for 30 minutes today. I was watching, going, Jesus, is he ever gonna stop? And I don't think I personally. I know Leanne doesn't want Al Franken to lose his job. She absolutely categorically.
He's
does not
going
want
to.
that. I think that's
going down.
But that's the part that bothers me about all of this.
No, because Doug Jones is going to win Alabama. I believe the people of Alabama. Here's an interesting thing about the Roy Moore thing. As long as people from Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Boston think everybody from Alabama is an idiot,
Right.
you will have the society you have.
Right.
Doug Jones also lives in Alabama. Doug Jones was born in Alabama. Doug Jones fought to bring to justice the killers of the 4 Alabama children who were killed in Birmingham, right? Mm-hmm. He lives there too. So when you're criticizing Alabama all the time, calling them rednecks and hip, you're just forgetting the good people of that region in the United States.
That is,
and we've got to stop doing that.
That is a truth that prevails all sort of talking down to the citizenship.
Yeah, but
whether it's telling them how to think, how to act, how to talk,
So
or
my
telling them what they
See,
are or are not.
This is why we need a philosopher king, you guys.
Absolutely.
I mean,
We
this
need-
democracy thing, it's not working out.
No, but don't
know?
you think so? Doug Jones is going to win. They're going to do their damnedest to get rid of a Democrat, right?
I don't know.
I
You're
think
right.
he's gone.
Politically,
I think
maybe
he's gone.
But let's keep
Yeah.
this conversation going. Where are we going with the sexual? What are we calling it? The allegation? What sexual?
We're going to keep going with it
Misconduct.
until it's somebody none of us can stomach, like Obama or some sacred person.
Well, they're starting to bring Clinton back.
If it was
to
Obama-
really look at what he
Yeah,
did.
remember that one.
What
Yeah.
if
That was a
Obama?
juicy
What if it's
one.
Obama?
He did horrible stuff.
What happens then?
Then we're our
What if
whole,
in college Obama did something inappropriate?
Well, don't they say that? What was the first disillusionment of America? Was it Nixon? Was it Watergate? Was the first disillusionment that the American people had?
That was a big one.
That the
What was the
government.
first
Vietnam
disillusionment?
was right there with it.
Yes.
So those are two big disillusioning experiences.
Yes. And I think that if it were to be an Obama, someone really, really beloved,
Revered, yeah.
yes, we are in for some kind of massive psychic collapse.
I'm not.
Well,
but it's
Al
gotta-
Frank is not far off because he's
From
he's thought of as a
It doesn't help that
thoughtful,
she's a conservative. If
Wait,
she
what
was
did he
a
do?
liberal,
Okay,
it would
wait.
be different.
Let me just wrap my head. What did he do? He took pictures.
She said they were on a USO tour, and he kept kind of doing inappropriate things with her. He put a picture of the devil over her, where she, it's silly stuff,
Right,
but,
right.
but inappropriate, making her uncomfortable.
He's going to
And-
bring up the photo so you can
may I see those,
What did you
please?
call
Well, hold
breasts
on.
earlier? Because you're a female.
Honkers,
Honkers,
flap
okay,
wagons,
there's him
the
with the honk.
grabbing of the honkers.
She's asleep on a plane, and he took this picture while she was asleep.
I did not. Bob,
mean-
didn't bring up the honkers word. That was your word.
But that's not what bothered her. She didn't even know about this. But what bothered her was there was some skit they were doing, and they had to kiss on the skit. And Al Franken insisted they rehearse the kiss. She kept going, I'm not comfortable, and they agreed. Okay, I'll tell you. Well, you go right, I'll go left. And we'll peck on the cheek. And they went, all right, I'll rehearse it. So she goes in for the peck. He grabs her head and sticks his tongue down her throat. And she wasn't happy with that. And had to literally push him away with both hands, she said.
Yeah.
And he never apologized. And she's been around him a few times and, let him know and know in certain terms she was mad at him about something.
Yeah.
And he didn't seem to get it.
Oh
So,
boy.
yeah, good times.
Well, then he was
Yeah.
he was drawing pictures of her
Yeah.
as a devil.
Yes, on
just to be funny.
Yes, he was doing funny. He was
See, that's the problem with comics, man, is that we're inappropriate for a living.
I know. That's
Not-
why being a comic's dangerous territory right about now.
Yeah, that's what worries me because I see the picture with Al Franken and the booby thing, and you're like, all right, like I can see that could have been me, and I would have
fraternity.
been like, whatever, bunch of swinging dicks, big deal. Exactly. I used to hanging out with these dudes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Well,
tongue down the throat is not
Yeah,
cool.
but this
ever.
is what you're referring to is something Susan and I have been talking a lot about lately. Is how do you manage what men do and are, and how do you let them know where the boundary is? How do you manage that?
Well, I'll tell you, as I'm in a male field, I
Yeah.
feel like there's just a force field of like, don't F with me.
So
that
you
I've
put
been
it out.
really
That's what she
lucky.
said. That
Hard ass.
some women are
Yeah.
able to.
You gotta be a hard ass.
We talked to
Yeah.
Tawny Katane. She said she'd never been treated
Especially in the
inappropriately.
workplace.
Yeah. I mean, I've been privy to club owners that have invited me back to the jacuzzi with their wife because they're swingers. And even that was like, it was even kind of politely done. And I was like, no thanks, you know.
Do you think it's because
When do they ever get somebody to go, God, yes?
but
Oh, I've been waiting for this offer. Thank you.
well, that's what's so
I
weird about
know.
the stuff that men pull. That
Oh,
somebody must
God.
reinforce it
Yeah.
somewhere, otherwise they wouldn't keep doing it. But
It's worked
who
somewhere.
liked Weinstein's maneuver? I don't know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, who when they knocked on his hotel room door and he was naked with his robe open went, finally. Yes.
Well, here's what I always wonder with these Weinsteins and the Cosbys of the world. The wives don't know. How do the wives not? Is it
The
just
guy,
Drew,
the guy
you tell
in,
me.
in
You-
Penn
well,
State
ask
said
the wives.
the guy in Penn State's wife
Wait,
claimed she didn't
But
know.
how would you
BS.
not? How would if you knew?
How do you
You would
not
know
know?
instinctively. She would know. You would too, right?
Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? I know what I'm like the FBI, CIA. I know what he's doing all the time.
Yeah,
Where are you
yeah.
going? What are you doing? When are you coming back? You know, what's the code to your phone? Don't worry, I know it already. I'm in there. I know everything he's doing.
Yeah.
He farts, I know what he had for lunch.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know how you're not on top of your husband, right?
Well,
Oh my goodness, that
Yeah.
didn't come out right.
No, that's
you know
right.
what I mean.
But go ahead. So
Eyes on, bro.
I almost think that they're so well off. They're kind of like they're afraid to lose their job too.
What do you mean?
If they call out their husband. I mean, all these women are always afraid to lose their job, or they don't want to
lose their job as wife, or have the husband lose his
All the
job.
women are worried about how
Status is what you're saying. Yeah.
how it's going to result if they call this guy out.
Well, here's what I wonder. Now,
I mean, I
do you
know
think?
people who have husbands are like that too, and they stay with them anyways.
Yeah, why?
It's
for
a
the
business.
handbags? For
Yeah,
free stuff?
Pretty much, or every year
I
they
mean-
make another $50 million. You know, you're another
But,
$50 million.
but if you
richer.
divorce, don't you get half of that?
I know it's
and then
California.
you don't have to deal with
That's
the guy?
what I always
You
say.
do, but there might be another 100 next year.
Yeah, but you're still. You can
How
make it,
much money
it's
is
ew,
But how
enough?
much do you
It's
need?
ew.
How much
I
do
don't
you
know,
need?
that
Why is that not
jet.
ew to you? It's ew.
No, that's what I think.
I'm with Christina.
I'm not
It's
saying
ew.
it's, I'm
But
not
Bismay,
saying
do you
it's
think?
not you.
Do you think that some women are hungry for attention? I'm not being pejorative about this because if I take the three of you, Susan, Christina, and Tawny, you guys don't need. You're not asking for it. You could take it or leave it. I'm sure you're like it if somebody says you look nice or whatever, but you don't have any need for it.
Right, right.
Some women need a little bit of.
I want to be
of-
taken seriously.
Okay.
I don't want to be like objectified at
All right,
work.
so that's what
I
is that
absolutely
same.
refuse.
Absolutely. There's a force field of do not
But
F
I,
with
I,
me.
I talked to some people on the radio that were like, I like that from men. I like that attention. I need that. And I was like, well,
no.
then it's going to start coming in ways that you don't want,
Yes.
right? If you even allow a tiny
Well,
bit
I like
in.
that attention, but in the workplace, it's just no way, Jose. No, I mean, I like to be attractive to men, but I just don't. In the workplace, if it ever happened to me, I would just shut it down. So
Yeah, but in the
fast.
workplace for you is a sort of a nefarious environment. It's a bar.
But I've always been one of the boys in a way. And I'm sure I'm not truly, but that's been always my approach. And I also dress like a dude. I don't know. I just don't court the energy. And I think you had this discussion with Tawny Katane when she was on here.
Yep.
About
But-
her. She talked about having her breasts reduced and not to say that you.
She did. She said she put them on for the wrong kind of
You're
attention.
scared of something. You're scared
Well,
of
'cause
just
I don't
saying
wanna
what you
say,
think. I know.
like,
Why we can't all live in fear of saying what we think.
Why? Jeez, I know. But that is the thing of like, because okay, look, let's look at
We're
the rehab.
we're afraid of
show.
a bunch of people with a phone going, I
No,
don't
I
like
know.
that.
But
I don't like that.
But let's look at Celebrity Rehab
Yeah.
or when you usually have these girls that are in porn.
Yeah.
What do? You make them wipe the makeup
Yeah.
off.
That's
That's
right.
number one. Strip it down so
And we
that
call them by
people
their
see.
name. Call them by their real name.
And why is that?
Because this front they put on is not real. It's a false front. We found that that's one thing I've learned about celebrities. They often have a fake name. They're not using their real names ever, and they all have that. And
Swifty? Remember Swifty?
But what also doesn't that court a certain type of man?
Oh,
Doesn't
sure.
it court certain
Sure.
type of
Sure.
behavior out in the world, societal, whatever?
We whether they want it or not, and you can argue about trying to adjust the male response, but they're clues, they're cues that people respond to.
Right. But then again, there are girls who don't do that stuff and they get assaulted.
Of
sure.
course.
It's
Listen,
all
we're not
in the
saying
world.
always or never, and we're not judging either.
Yeah.
We're not saying you should or shouldn't. They can do whatever they want. But
We're obviously going through something, and everybody's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I am too. I kind of I'm reserving judgment on this because I'm like, something's doing.
and it's good. It's
cooking.
not bad. It's good. I mean, it's a
Yes.
reordering in a positive way. It's just where is that place? Where are we going? I'd like to be a part of
Don't
it.
assault women.
Yeah, well, that's an easy
Keep
one.
it in your pants.
Well, but Al Franken, was that an assault?
Well, he wanted to rehearse the kiss over and over again, and she was like, I don't know why you want to do it. And he was insisting. He was like desperate to do it, and that's sort of an assault.
Okay.
When somebody shoves their tongue in your mouth like that, it is an assault.
Yeah, that's just
especially when you're
gross.
doing a shtick thing with a kiss and the girl's supposed to blush. Being that girl is never fun.
Susan's not a tongue
Because I've
kisser.
had that. I've had that part.
Yeah,
And
you've
I've done
been-
it. I've been, but I've never been assaulted. I've had to play the part, but I never was assaulted because I guess I put off that vibe.
Well, Drew, would you ever insist on
No.
practicing the kiss? Neither would
No.
Bob, right? Because you guys are decent dudes and you know
Yeah.
the difference between appropriate and inappropriate.
Yes,
And-
I think so.
And now
I
we're having
think so.
to say that.
But we also have a new generation of men that are scared, and I'd like them to have real specific guidelines so they can know exactly where they're getting. Millennials are hearing this; they get it. They're just now they're like, well, what the hell?
Right,
What do we
right.
do? Not do? How do we?
That's the next TV show, Millennial Sex Ed, guys.
Ooh.
You got to bring back
Sex ed.
Loveline.
You
You got
got-
to do Loveline again.
Well, we're
for
going to be so
millennials.
busy with this sex molester show.
Sexual assault
Sexual
rehab.
assault rehab.
No, but you said something interesting that it's power.
Celebrity. Hey,
Yeah.
celebrity.
You got to do celebrities, not regular people.
Power and
Because
control.
celebrities are not like us, right?
Power and control.
Yeah,
Power and
so
control.
what is-
humiliation rehab?
So what's going on? What's power? What is that about?
That is
power.
about little boys being humiliated by mom and crushed. Their
Always.
little souls being crushed.
The serial killer, right?
Yeah.
It's always a
Do you watch The
mommy.
Mindhunter?
My husband does. I'm terrified. I can't.
It's so good. It's so good.
Stop it, you guys! I can't do murders and serial. But so like Harvey Weinstein's mother, humiliates him, tortures him, and then he takes it out on women.
He then
later.
then he feels small and humiliated and worthless. So he has to go into the world and build himself up to
conquer.
something gigantic, so he can keep himself buttressed against that small feeling. And then when it comes to sex and sexuality, out comes those primitive feelings and activities. And so he's humiliating, he's aggressing against, he's showing his power, and it becomes for the average heterosexual male, it's like, why is that even?
Yeah.
That's not. Ugh,
Yeah, what are you doing, bro?
that's not sexual. It's like, what is that?
It's weird.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
The plant.
I think
the-
he was a weird-looking guy, and he couldn't get what he wanted.
Well, there's
But
that.
his
that
wife is beautiful, so
right. I mean,
Okay, so then that brings us to a
But I
whole
think the
nother
money has a
rabbit
lot to
hole,
do
which is,
Yeah.
okay, let's say Melania Trump, right? Why does she marry an older, overweight, kind of not
Spray
the brightest
tan. Rich
guy,
troll,
spray tanned, weird guy? Why?
Handbags, money.
oh my
So
God,
why
shoes.
is that not open for criticism
Oh,
in our society?
oh, it is.
No, you can't. If I tried to,
I think it's revolting,
do you think
but
it's open
why?
for criticism?
yeah, no, I don't think so.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're attacking a woman. You
I mean-
can't criticize her.
Oh, I see. I see.
You can't
Well, here's why.
criticize her
Here's
for
why you
marrying
can't.
You could
him.
analyze
Not
Here's why you
everything.
can't. Because it's an exchange. Sex is also a form of exchange, right? It's the first institution that ever was. It's a business model. I stay hot, I stay fuckable, I still fuck you. Oh, sorry.
It's all
We're on
right.
I
Facebook
saw-
Live. Two children just
Sorry,
lost
guys,
their
sorry.
These comedians,
I'm
goth
such a
comedians.
potty mouth. But that's the exchange. So it's actually a form of contract. I was in law school for 2 weeks, and I remember in contract class,
Was there any other professional or graduate school you didn't go to?
I've tried it all. I've tried it all. My life is
No,
but it's a form of contract.
But no,
It's
I'm
an
just
exchange.
interested in cultural norms. Why is it that you can't criticize the model who marries the old billionaire guy?
Okay, because
Why?
the feminist movement now will call that empowerment. They will say, "Oh, but you're so sexually liberated that you're using your body to
That's the
benefit
Madonna
you."
Yeah.
phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's
That's
in
right.
my opinion, it's kind of a false sense of power. If you want to get real power, let's get in the White House. Let's start making the money. I feel liberated doing porn. Why don't you own the company that makes the porn? that to me is that's the power move, you know. But whatever, that's just
Well,
That's
the
the existential
the
you.
other kinds of co-opting power that you're talking about, like being a porn star, being
co-opting power. That's the phrase for it. I like
it's
that.
also essentially the Stockholm syndrome. It's also something that people enslaved would do. They'd identify with their captors and they would adopt all their stuff and say they were good to them and all this kind of business.
So you think Melania is Stockholm?
Of sorts. Could be. I don't know them, but who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, here's another thing. Do
Interesting.
you think African American comedians can get away with things that white comedians can't? Because we were on the Burt podcast. What's
Burt
that?
Kreischer.
Yeah. And
Never
he
heard of him.
was going off about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, if I'm a woman can say things men can't say, a black comedian can say what they want to say. Yes, whoever's marginalized in society wields the mouth power. That's how it
Okay,
goes.
so the power that's going after these white powerful men, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't veer off going towards language that's used by other people, right?
I don't follow
I didn't
what
get
you
that
mean.
either.
Yeah.
The idea that I think, just for instance, Chris Rock can say things that no one else can say.
Yes,
That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
because he's marginalized in society. He does it. You can punch up. You can't punch down in comedy. That's just the rule.
Or even across. Maybe across.
You can do lateral. I can.
You just came at Burt Kreischer and just nailed him.
Who? Never heard of that guy. He's not very famous. Where's his Netflix? I don't know. Bart Kreischer.
So if
Bart
you were
Kreischer.
during the election, if you were to criticize Hillary Clinton, what would have happened?
I'm allowed to. She's a white lady. No,
You
you
are?
can go lateral.
You
You
can?
can punch laterally.
I don't know.
I can
I'm
crap
listening.
on celebrities, white blonde girls.
I look like Melania, so I can say whatever I want.
She's really pretty.
You hear somebody asked her if she bleaches her butthole,
Oh,
Somebody asked her that?
and then she said no, but my husband uses a spray tan. I was like, wow.
Christina, why did you ask her that?
The president's wife. This is the president.
Who asked
of
her
the United
that?
It was in. You know how your phone pops up and stuff comes up.
I think it's the
cares?
Onion said this. It's the Onion, Susan. I think you better take a look at who said that. That is the
So I can
funniest.
say that because I am a white woman.
So-
Who looks like Melania, but but the Onion can say that because they're the Onion.
The point I'm trying to make is
Yes.
I was critical of Hillary Clinton, and some friends of mine, female friends of mine, wanted me dead.
Yes.
Right?
What? What?
Well,
Right.
that's reasonable, Bob.
No, but how can we survive like this?
Until stuff equals out a bit more. So here's what I think what's going on in society is the equalizing of things. So you forget the women's movement is fairly new, as is civil rights. We're only talking about, the 1960s? When could women vote, Drew? When did this happen?
28.
28.
28? Was it that late?
I think.
So it's like, when you look at the grand scheme of things, we haven't really gone so far, or we're going far in a very short time because of technology. So this is like the pendulum is it's going to go all over the place because of the internet.
And nothing, I'm going to tell you something, nothing affects our social historical sort of phenomenology, to use your...
I like that.
Yeah. To
Heidegger.
use your... Start with Hegel.
Thank you,
This philosopher.
German.
That nothing affects the phenomenology of the human more than biological change. And when we developed antibiotics and people didn't need to die of STDs until AIDS came around to challenge that a little bit, and developed birth control that sort of unmoored us from a biology that we'd been with the entirety of human evolution.
Right.
Of course things are going to change. Of course they're going to change. So that's just the male-female piece that's changing. And plus now we're mixing in different ways, and the cultures are coming in different ways and communicating in different ways. Going to change things. It's got to have rather fierce consequences, it seems to me.
That's a really astute observation, man. That was great.
So I think the antibiotics are the
that.
big one, and people don't really realize that.
Yes, because you died, in the medieval period at 35?
Died from everything. You died if you got a urinary tract infection. You did.
right.
UTIs
Yeah.
were deadly.
That's bananas.
Yeah, you die of skin infections. Everyone gone,
would've
staph
been
death,
dead by now.
sepsis. Yeah, you'd be long
Yes,
gone. STDs, you'd be forget that. You get
Especially-
this one.
See, they didn't have the chance to die of cancer for many centuries.
Yeah.
But now we have cancer.
And by the way, the new
And when we
models-
cure that, oh my God.
Well, the new model, we're
no.
getting close. Let me tell you something. Cancer is an exciting place to be right now. I'm in a lot of research with the Prostate Cancer
Exciting.
Foundation. And
listen to that sentence. Cancer is an exciting
really
place to be
fun.
right
it
now.
is.
Yeah,
It's
it
going
is.
to be. The treatments are going to be
horizons.
very much like infectious disease. The way we go about, no, it's not the fact that it's just immunotherapy. It's the way we attack the tumor is going to be very similar to the way we attack bacteria. It's very interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem very
So
efficient
then,
now.
what will people die of other than guns and suicide?
Well, they will die of
Drugs. There's still
aging.
drugs.
They will die of age, and people don't seem to understand what that is.
You know what you said many years ago on Loveline? Or whenever you go, you know what? People seem to forget that we are biological
time.
beings
They
who
can't-
break down.
They can't stand that. They just forget
Yes.
even the breakdown part. We are biological.
That's right.
what we are. We're biological beings, and that has
Tell
real
about the cell thing.
implications.
At a cellular level,
Yeah.
something kicks on.
When?
At 72 or 76 or 78, you said something like that one time. And you're aging and you're just going off a cliff. Like it accelerates.
Well, it does accelerate. It's a good old.
Yeah.
No, you know what I said? I said men.
Well, that's the only ones I'm
Yeah.
concerned about.
I
When it
said-
comes
About the
to
other half.
death.
No, what I told
No,
him
you're
was
going to
that
live to be like 103.
I don't want to. What for? What's the point?
the men, the wheels come off the wagon during their 70s.
Is that
See?
right?
Yeah, generally speaking. But if they make it through,
Oh,
they're usually
there's
pretty
hope.
good. They're usually pretty good for several years.
That's
after
when
that.
your body breaks
just
down.
stuff starts happening. Just stuff starts going on.
70?
70s, things start. Susan's like, we got to travel before that.
We
We
have-
gotta,
You're going to be waiting for him in the walker.
Couple decades to go here. I got to work on this.
Wait, what happened? I mean, you're just talking like cancer.
You said something
strokes and heart
turns
disease
on
and
at a
cardio-
cellular level.
No, it's not that. No, it's not. It's just that's what seems. That's been my observation. That,
And
that
women were later.
women,
Oh,
it's
just keep on
it's much
trucking.
less.
My Auntie Abby lived to be 96. She
I-
was deaf and
I
blind,
would
but
say
she was still going.
Women, it's much more of a slope,
God.
a steady
Anti-what?
slope through the 80s. While
Yeah.
men, it's like boom, 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 and then they're like, okay, all right, made it, and then they can kind of come out of it a little bit too. So
I never want to lose my husband.
So
We're such a
here's,
bonded
do you
pair.
think about death a lot? Because I
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
I
obsessed
do.
about it. Let's talk
do
about
too.
death. I love
so
it.
my Uncle Jerry,
one time we have to
My
abandon the
show
show.
is-
We good? All right.
Sorry.
my Uncle Jerry, ironically, came to a book signing I had, and I hadn't seen him in about 15 years, and he was in his 90s, and I said, Uncle Jerry, you ever think about how you lived? Like, all his brothers died at 58, 62, 61, 64, and I was like, how is it you live this long? Because I'm concerned about the genetics. Like, how long does a Forrest live, right? And he
Well,
goes,
you're pretty
never
resilient.
smoked, never drank.
Oh, well.
Never smoked, never drank. Well, I'm going, never smoked, never drank since
But you've got like cockroach.
1996.
But you and I too, the Eastern Blocker stuff. We got cockroach DNA.
But I got the Ashkenazi Jew garbage.
Oh, that's
That's
terrible.
bad stuff.
Yeah, I've
that's
heard
bad
about
stuff.
that. What about you, Susan? How's your
Oh,
DNA?
it's-
all good.
100. Her dad lived to be
When I-
100.
yeah.
I'll
near-
be bleaching
100.
my butthole when I'm 90. I'll be on that cruise ship around the world.
It's
I'll be
fantastic.
that hot 90-year-old like, come on, baby. Sexually harass me. Bring it.
No, this Facebook's really gonna love it.
That is
Bleaching
it.
beeholes.
What's going on Facebook? Do they have any questions for us or comments or anything? You're monitoring, huh?
They want to know who Burnt Chrysler was.
Burnt Chrysler.
Bert Chrysler.
Oh, the fattest working comedian known to man.
We don't know who he is. None of us do.
Oh, I've
I
never
have to
heard
go
of him
back. I
either.
lost my page. Sorry.
Now he went through Sober October.
Yes, he
yeah,
did.
he
and
told
we
me he was
went
going to
out
drive me
there.
onto Rogan's show and then magically didn't. I don't know what the deal was.
Well, we'll talk later. We'll figure
yes,
something
please. Thank you.
out. Yeah, he did it. I'm very surprised.
I was not. I coached him up at the very beginning. He was in a panic.
Yeah.
And he called me like, am I going to be okay? I have to fly? Like, Bert's you're going to be fine.
I've always
If you're
found
serious.
it's really easy to stay sober for short periods of time.
Yeah.
It's long
Staying
periods of time that
sober
are
is the
very
problem.
difficult.
so if
Thanks,
it were a 90-day challenge,
As long as you know, like I would say a year. If you guys really want to F with him, say put some real money down though. Everybody's gonna have to pitch in, get 100 grand out there in front of him.
Burke could do it.
100 grand. Don't drink or take drugs for a year. He cannot do that. I guarantee
No,
you.
Bert's a binge user, though. Bert's the
Let's
binge
talk
user.
about Bert's
A
use.
year is a long time, Drew.
So Drew, what? Yeah, you think it's binge party guy? It's the
Binge alcoholic,
the
yeah.
frat.
And they're easier, they're harder to nail down. They're a little slippier because they can control it for long periods of time.
Not a year.
Well, maybe not. I've never tried that with bribing a binge alcoholic. It'd be interesting.
Does bribery work for sobriety?
Yeah. Oh, sure. It motivates.
all
oh, yeah.
kinds of motivators work.
Yeah.
I had no. I thought you had to be motivated
How about
from
this?
within to change.
You know,
No,
how
it doesn't matter where it starts.
You
You gotta
love
get 'em.
Celebrity Rehab, right?
Yeah.
So I had the aftercare. The last 3 seasons, I had the aftercare, right? And these people were obsessed with their last check, right?
Right.
You know,
I'm
how
sure it's a
They
fortune.
were compensated.
They were- some
right?
of them were paid
So I
well.
kept telling
Really?
some of the not brightest ones I'm not gonna, that you weren't going to get your check unless you stayed sober.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. You guys should have
It
done that
worked.
the whole
It worked.
time.
I was like, and one of them did use drugs and got arrested. I said, dude, you're not going to get your last check. And he's like, no, are you kidding? I'm going to get a lawyer.
Oh.
Good luck. Wait, how much do you think lawyers cost, dum-dum? Yeah, there goes your paycheck.
So anyways, I think certainly those at home that have loved one that's suffering and causing you suffering, you can motivate them by your giving them a bottom line. You know, it's pain and suffering that motivates people in the right direction. Sometimes bribery works, right? What is freedom? Here's the thing. I got sober because a judge told me if I didn't stay sober, I was going to prison.
That's a good motivator.
Freedom was bribery. I didn't think in terms of like going to prison because it's hard when that's hanging over your head for 3 years, right? You can't think about prison and what might happen there to a little guy like me, right?
You're very
What did
But you
handsome, yeah.
can think about freedom. Like my sobriety started to be about freedom right off the bat. Like I remain free. I can do what I want as long as I stay sober.
Dude, be what I want to be. Like, hi. That Peter Fonda's
true.
speech.
Because they'll
Gonna
take
party.
you into custody like that back in the day, but nowadays they don't.
Prison's where they find all the drugs, right? Isn't that where the best drugs are nowadays?
Yeah.
It's
Have
also
a-
where people find God a lot.
Ooh.
God's there. Sobriety's there. Lots of
Cool.
time. Yeah.
It works,
yeah, that's
right?
That's
Whatever.
whatever works. That's exactly right.
It's crazy.
So I have a friend named Mary Loynes who went to school with you.
I love her.
She said, did Christina discuss her feminine lessons from our older Irish nun high school teachers? She is brilliant.
Yeah.
I know that about her. I picked that up immediately
Everybody's
in your.
saying how brilliant.
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
Brilliant
Okay,
people.
guys.
You
Like,
hide it.
she
You
knew.
hide it a little bit.
Well-
Christina, you do.
Do I?
Yes.
Are we making you uncomfortable?
No.
I hope so.
There was, I'm either misunderstood the question or you had feminist women's studies in Catholic school.
Negative. No, we had feminist teachers. We had wonderful teachers at this all-girls school I
Oh,
went
that
to.
weren't nuns.
Yeah, you had civilians that
nuns?
taught, and there
Oh,
were
civilians,
nuns who
yeah, yeah.
taught, and they taught us horrible things about sex ed, like when you know that phrase, blue.
Yes.
Yeah, this nun said it was when a man gets cold.
Blue balls.
Yeah, and then we were like,
Well, that's true.
That is
Is
true.
it?
yeah,
That's
but that's
true.
not
Yeah,
what
not
that's not what
metaphorically.
it's referring to.
Yeah, it's silly,
No.
so silly.
Yeah.
They taught you that in high school?
Yeah, sex ed in like 10th grade, which is way too late. I mean, by 10th grade,
When did you graduate high school?
94.
So that was the AIDS epidemic time.
Heck yeah.
and they weren't giving you
Dude,
real info.
AIDS ruined my college experience. Like, I would have been getting it in a lot more had it not
Sorry.
been for the AIDS terror that was rained on us.
Was it as bad in England too?
I didn't hook up. No, I did. I hooked up with Americans. Now
Yeah.
they're way
You were
less
good there.
hysterical.
Okay, good.
Yeah, way less hysterical.
Every time I hear Oxford, I think of two things: Bill Clinton, now you,
Yeah.
and Tom York.
Oh, and I used to see him
Radio-
walking around.
Did you really?
This is right when Radiohead was like,
Radiohead's from Oxford.
Yes.
Did you know that?
Wow.
and we used to see him walking around, going to
With the
pubs
eye,
and
with the
gigs.
eye.
Oh, yeah, it was cool, super cool.
Did you go see them when they were there?
My friends did. At the time, I didn't even know who they were, and someone was like, "Dude, that's Radiohead right there," and I was like, "What? Who?" And then later, I put it together.
You should
cool.
lie now and say you saw them in a little club there.
Yeah, I'm so cool. I'm not that cool. I'm not that cool.
What's that?
What
Miss,
you got,
Miss
Susan?
Producer, you're saying wrap it up?
Wrap it up.
Is that what you were saying?
Wrap it up. Mama's got to
All
go
right.
to bed.
All right, wrap it up. Christina, it is a privilege. I hope we'll.
Great to meet you.
You guys
see-
are my
have a
favorite,
million
and
plugs in
this has
front
been
of
the
you.
best.
What's that?
You have a million plugs.
I know. I'm going to give all the plugs to relax here. But,
Hydrolite?
Yeah,
Hydrolite.
the
Let's
I
all.
like
We should all go
that.
out to dinner sometime with the Kreischers and
Love it.
everybody. Bob, you
The
come on now.
last house.
To the
Okay.
valley? I don't know.
No, we're going to meet midway
If
somewhere.
you guys want to keep talking about something else, you may. But he has to he has to talk.
Go.
About
All right, then I
Go
do my
for it.
plugs. Oh, that's what she was mad. She was the plugs, the plugs.
The plugs. The plugs.
Okay,
The
so
last
we have
house.
we have the Last House, which we think is a pretty cool sober living here in Los Angeles, and you can check out the interview we do with the director there. Also, our friends at Hydrolyte, the effervescent tablets that I tell you can replace an IV fluid repletion. So those of you that are, yes.
That's cool.
Yes, I envisioned that a long time ago, and now here it is.
Dang.
I'm thinking this is going to keep me alive.
Don't forget, me and Mike Catherine, we're going to be at the Ice House December 5th with Emily Morris joining us. Yes, doing a live podcast there. Check out the Dr. Drew podcast, the Adam and Drew podcast, the Weekly Infusion with Dr. Bruce, the Thing with Mike, KBC 790 podcast, the Midday Live KBC show, which is the same radio station that Leanne Tweeden, now everyone knows, is on. Check out.
Gonna be, I imagine
So
there'll
tune
be
in.
some news cameras down there tomorrow. Drew,
Oh, today
when
was
you're at work.
no. Today they actually took a conference room and turned it into a press conference. Every news outlet on earth was there. I mean,
Oh,
everybody.
boy.
And Bob's
and you
podcast.
think he's not going down?
It's a brave thing to do.
And Bob's podcast, Don't Die.
Don't Die podcast.
Don't Die
Well,
podcast.
just go to rehabbob.com.
rehabbob.com. Go.
I never
die.
promote my.
Bob,
Well, no, I'm.
nothing positive ever. Just don't die. How about live?
It's just
You live. That's what we call our
Yes, I
podcast.
know.
You
yeah,
live.
this life and don't die. Those are my two podcasts.
Go to doctor.com, support us. It's the holidays. We could use some help with these podcasts. Click through on the Amazon banner there. And
You have to listen to the podcast. Just subscribing doesn't work anymore. You have to actually listen, or at least listen to a minute. So
Yes, well, or just push on and don't have the volume on.
yeah,
But
when you're in the shower, just push the on button. Christina Netflix special. I cannot recommend it strongly enough. It's called Mother Inferior. It is funny. You'll see why I said immediately we must have her in here. Her Twitter handle is @Christina P.
You also said she's going to be really huge one day.
Did I say that?
See her
I could see
rising
that.
to the top.
Guys.
Yeah, I was this
Might
one.
have a
This
major
one.
motion picture out.
don't
like, this
blow
one.
it. Don't blow
Don't
it with
jinx
some
it.
sexual
How do I-
harassment thing
Oh,
once
thank
you're up
you.
there.
I'm so not fun. I'm the least fun of anything.
Because I
do
have a
nothing.
feeling the wind's going to blow the other way, and it's going to be women. She grabbed me.
That would be equal, wouldn't it? If we started going after.
Yeah, go
There
do
you
it.
go.
I'll serve myself
That's
up.
true.
You could do.
Your mom's podcast, your mom's house
You just
podcast.com.
volunteered to be sexually
Yeah, it's
harassed.
fine.
Anytime.
That's
At our age, we'll take it
That's
anyway.
Deep Bro podcast is the other one you should
Going
see.
on that cruise.
Check out there's some guy named Bert Kreischer that
Yeah.
I think Christina and Tom know.
Not very
Fraser.
popular. Not very
He's
good.
really an unpopular dude. He's big.
He's fat.
He's fat.
How fat was he when you guys saw him last?
He was sitting
Did he fit
down.
through the
he
door?
was sitting down,
down.
but then he
Yeah.
did that video with him coming out of the pool in a Speedo. And I was like,
Disgusting.
dude.
Yeah.
Pool looked good, though. The new pool they put in the backyard. It's nice.
Yeah.
You ever have any? You never had any English boyfriends there when you were there?
You know what,
They
man?
love speedos. The
Dude,
English
they were
guys.
just kind of like, they didn't have any game. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't want to talk to American girls. They didn't
Oh,
know how to
really?
spit game. They were kind of lame. They
But
didn't
they wear
come up to you.
speedos, right? In summer.
I don't like Speedos.
I know it's gross.
My dad
Somebody
wears
wants to
them.
know
I'm
if
like,
you're going to Maui with Tommy.
I am.
She
I'm
is.
not performing.
Tom's going to Maui.
Whoop, whoop.
Nice. Where
In
you guys staying?
December.
Nice. How
I'm
fun.
not gonna tell you where we're staying.
Okay,
on
well,
the
it's-
internet.
yeah,
I'll
you're
tell you later.
You're right. Yes, of course. I forget this thing on whether people actually listen. I had a bunch of emails, you guys, but we were too interested in talking to Christina
Yeah,
and talking about what's
it
going on in
was
the world.
fine.
Yeah, we will try to get to them. I
That
promise.
was just in case you
Don't
There-
die to
here's
those
one.
people whose lives might have depended on that email. Don't
Here is one,
die
though.
until next podcast.
Here's
That is
one,
a
though. I would like-
horrible title, Bob. We
like
need
to
to
get
work
some
on that.
support from my friends here. Doctor, love your stuff, but how can you still work with that Corolla character? He's been such a full-blown functioning alcoholic. Can't you say, I can't be with you anymore if you choose to live like this? Thanks, man.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
sure. Well, I'll just do that.
I don't think Adam's...
He'd have to leave me
Adam's
too.
not an
No, I don't think
alcoholic.
so.
He would never lose control enough to be an alcoholic.
That's how I'm like, I have control stuff too.
Do
And
ya?
that's why I never became.
Couldn't go. You
Isn't
couldn't-
that a
I don't
nice
have fun.
question?
That's why
no
I don't.
fun.
That's why I never like pot. Pot makes you feel like I don't know when it's going to wear off.
Isn't what? Isn't
But
that,
what do you think?
how
of
do you know
that
when heroin's
question?
going to wear off?
I know. Well, you can counter heroin with cocaine.
Oh my God. Who does that to themselves?
When I read a question like
me.
that, I only printed it out because I want to know what you think of that question. Like if somebody says, "How can you work with somebody like that?" And
It's work.
Like or
It's not marriage.
You talking about Adam?
yeah.
How can I work with Adam?
Are you taking? It's like being sexually harassed. How can you? How do you? Why do you do that? Is it that bad?
No, it's not that bad.
Yeah,
We've had moments over the years where it's gotten a little bit like you got to be kidding, like
Yeah.
really, but for the most part, we're friends for a long time, 20 years. We've had rocky and lofty peaks and valleys in our relationship, And generally, we shake hands and we're friends no
And
matter
some
what.
of it's kind of a shtick too.
And some of it's doing radio. I understand he's got a job to do.
But when I see those questions, I'm always like, who asked that? Like, they're just stirring shit, really.
Well, look at my Twitter feed sometimes.
No, but
Yeah,
I
I
think
know.
no,
Your
but
Twitter feed is-
why I think they're doing it is they're comparing work to marriage. We're talking about your children are in a house with a using addict or a alcoholic. That's different. You as a spouse have to do something.
Yeah.
But when you can just go to work and do your job and get out of there if somebody's got a drinking problem.
Well,
yeah, every comedian alive. Most
Yeah,
of
that's
us,
what I was going to say. Like,
yeah.
they'll close up the comedy shops if we
Yeah.
can.
Drew
If we
surrounds
can't do
himself
that.
with alcoholics. So he doesn't have a problem with them personally. He just, he just has to deal with their.
Some drink, some don't.
That's right.
Right?
He's a good guy.
Codependent boundaries. Set your boundaries.
That's what I'm saying.
You don't want to let him in. You don't want to let him in, man.
No, I let him in the thing about codependency really is it mobilizes your shit,
Yeah.
but you think it's theirs. Do you understand?
We gotta talk about this next time. Let's
Yeah.
do a whole episode on codependency.
All right.
Well, I don't like calling it codependency because they don't
It's a
like that
misnomer.
word, right?
Right.
It's people who live who think their feelings come from other people.
Oh God.
Yes.
That's what it
Yes,
is.
That's what it is.
Yeah, right.
All right.
That's what,
Next
wait.
time.
So
Wait.
next
Any
Now
time-
last-
somebody said Adam's not as bad as Mike is.
Well, I was going to say Mike can get pretty bad too, and Mike's
sober.
He's very sober, but he
comedians
will say,
who-
"I'm doing this for radio. I'm doing this for a fact." He's very explicit about it.
Right.
Adam does not say that, but he just says, "You're a pussy and an asshole to me." That I am. So that's why he does it. So.
That's why we love him.
Yes, we do indeed. All right, thank you very much for.
See you later,
And Christina will do a
alligator.
codependency
Thank
one
you.
coming up.
I
So thanks
love
for being
it.
here. All right,
Thank
see
you
next
so
time.
much.
Bye-bye.
Well, there are a lot of factors that lead to recovery and particularly success in recovery, but programs that challenge patients, that don't gratify them, that often is the most effective. And that's what we like about Last House Sober Living in Los Angeles. Last House, structured program based on accountability and your actions, living a certain kind of life. Not like those luxury treatment centers that kind of feed the narcissism, entitlement, selfishness. Last House works to combat the learned helplessness some of these millennials have. Also, device dependency. A lot of places shrink from that one. And the codependent family system that needs a lot of help. The community challenges addicts with disciplinary systems that teaches them consequences for their choices and actions. The program isn't easy. In fact, it's quite difficult. It's supposed to be difficult. It's hard work to recover. Their theory is, much like diamonds, recovered addicts are forged under pressure. If you or a loved one is looking for a program that aligns with so many of the characteristics we believe lead to a successful recovery, please have a look at Last House. Learn more, visit thelasthouse.net. Again, that is thelasthouse.net. Visit them today. Hydrolite, of course, you've heard me rave about these guys. It's a product that I actually wanted to develop myself. I conceived of this. I knew it was needed. It was already in Australia, and now it is here. It works. The feedback is unanimous. Even though it's great to use, though, when you're sick or dehydrated, you can use it every day, especially now that the weather is changing. It's hot. So whether you're exercising or maybe you got seasonal allergies or you drank too much or you got vomiting or diarrhea, whatever it might be, you can reduce fatigue and keep feeling healthy as well. Once you've started feeling dehydrated, sometimes a little too late. So you want to stay hydrated. And rapid rehydration, if you do get dehydrated, requires a proper balance of sodium, glucose, and water, and nothing provides it like Hydrolite. I'm telling you, it's the same as an IV fluid via your mouth, via your enteral system. It's based on established, proven science, quite simply the best rehydration product out there. It comes in great flavors. They have those fizzy tablets. Also, they have a powder and a premixed drink. Compared to other sports drinks, Hydrolite delivers up to 4 times the electrolytes with 75% less sugar. Hydrolite solutions are appropriate for all ages, and each bottle or package includes easy-to-follow directions. All right, you can find Hydrolite at Rite Aid or online at Amazon or click through at drdrew.com. And for more information, visit hydrolite.com. That is Hydrolite, Hydralyte, hydrolite.com.
Remember, you can find all these podcasts at drdrew.com. The Dr. Drew podcast, the This Life podcast, and the Adam and Drew podcast, which is available 5 days a week. Find them all on iTunes and rate us 5 stars. Subscribe and get it first. And if you're really happy, click on the Amazon banner at drdrew.com to help support the show. We'll thank you for it. If you join the email list via drdrew.com/contact, we'll send you a weekly infusion newsletter with Dr. Drew's news. We're so grateful when you get in touch. We read all your emails and we'll bring you the subject matter you want to hear about.
You live.